Thank you for that. And up next, we have Benny with a question. Great name. Hi, Benny. Go ahead and unmute yourself. Benny, if you can check in, we just want to have you unmute yourself so we can hear your question from Marianne. Benny, I love your name, but throw me. I'll tell you what, we'll give Benny one more chance right after this, but let's move on to Joanne. Joanne, if you can go ahead and unmute yourself, we'll have our tech team send you a note, I think, too. There we go. Hi, Joanne.
Hi there. So, hi, Marianne.
Hi.
I love you. I know you for many, many years since I'm a young girl.
Many of us have. We've been around. We've all known each other for a long time. Many of us.
And you look gorgeous. So I seem to be, I don't know, I seem to be in some kind of setback. Just I'm having a tough time with so many losses in my life, and being alone. I have no children, no parents, no siblings, and I have so many gifts. I'm a talented artist. I do portraits, beautiful portraits. People always like ooh and ah with them, and I cut hair and did that in Trump Tower. Sorry about the Trump name. And just, have a lot of gifts that I want to manifest. And it just seems like, I don't know, like so much time I get caught up in setbacks with losses or traumas from my childhood being reignited. You once suggested meditation to me when at Omega when I was about 45 years old. We were about 45 years old. And I just have not been able to take to them. I am a plant-based organic vegan, and my body just doesn't seem to do well with anything that isn't natural. So I don't know. I guess my question is, do you know anything out there that has been effective to help people who came from severely abusive backgrounds and have had I've lost two friends of 30 years. I lost my husband of 35 years. I lost all three of my brothers. Yeah. So, is there anything out there that really works?
Yes, there are a million things out there that work. What is your name again?
Joanne.
Okay, so this is the deal, Joanne. They all work if you work them. The Course in Miracles works. They all work. Gabor Mate's work. There are so many modalities out there for healing your life, but nothing's going to work unless you work it. And there's nothing that's going to work unless you make some changes along the line of what I was saying here today. Who am I and why am I here? I'm not in any way diminishing or minimizing the trauma of your abusive childhood. But at the same time, I remind you that we are all wounded, and there is a point at which we decide whether or not to act from the wound. Too many people are waiting till the wound is healed before they show up for the planet. You can't be happy in today's world unless you're showing up for the planet, and we do not have enough time for everybody to wait until they're enlightened masters to do so. That is just a trick of the ego mind. And I also want to remind you, Joanne, that I assume you're an American or you live in a Western democracy?
Yeah, I live here in New York.
All right, so I would remind you that what you and I have to worry about is nothing compared to what women in Afghanistan might have to worry about soon, what women in Saudi Arabia have to worry about, what women in many societies have to worry about if they try to exercise a fraction of the abilities that you and I can take for granted. So there is grace and grit a softening and a toughening up that is called for right now. Where this has been a really rough time in the loneliness and isolation department. But there are also many people you can help, many ways that you can wake up in the morning. Sometimes I tell myself, with everything that I practice, etc., sometimes it's simply as a matter of attitudinally throwing cold water on my face. Marianne, get over yourself. Get up, take a shower, get dressed, get over yourself. Don't think about you. Who can you help today? What part, if you're lonely, Marianne, what Google could you be on? What Zoom? Where could you be doing something giving? Because what happens is that the ego mind, would have us almost embellish the wound. And there is a level of decision. There is a level of decision. And I know about this. I wrote a book called Tears to Triumph. I know what depression feels like. I know what emotional moods are like. There's that Simon and Garfunkel song, Hello Darkness, My Old Friend. But I also know there's some attitudinal choices that I have to make. And it can't be just which modality would work. They will all work if I work them, but no matter what, until we're at the level of enlightened master, it's going to be hard sometimes. And COVID has been hard. And if you're lonely, you have to look at the ways you isolate. You have to look at the ways you're choosing not to participate. And it's not a denial of the wound, but it is a denial of the power of the wound to hold you back. We have a democracy at stake. We have a planet at stake right now. And one of the most dangerous risks to the world is if we have become so soft and self-indulgent that we would not be willing to act in spite of our pain. And what I've learned, Joanne, is that there are a lot of hours in the day. Go out into the world, do what you can, kick ass, Marianne, give what skills and talents you have. And when you come home later tonight, if you have to spend an hour crying into your pillow or processing your stuff, you'll get to do that too, but not right now, because your country needs you and your great-great-grandchildren need you. And I tell you something, sometimes that's the best advice I can give myself. It's hard, but it's nothing hard for you, Marianne, compared to what some people on this planet are going through.
I tell myself that I'm being self-indulgent and that there's so much I need to do to make a contribution. And I just don't know. It's just another way of it feels like another way of beating myself up for not.
No, sometimes there is such thing, it's funny. That's an interesting thing that your mind will come up with. The issue is if you're telling yourself I'm being self-indulgent, maybe you should listen to yourself in that moment. We coddle our neuroses too much in our society today, Joanne, and a lot of that came from our community. We coddle it in ourselves, we coddle it in each other. And I'm not minimizing your wounding. I'm not minimizing it. I'm not diminishing what terrible trauma has done. But I also know that I've known people who, one of my heroes is a woman I knew. She died a couple years ago, 2 years in Auschwitz. And lived to succeed, triumph, victorious in every way. It can happen. So you're not alone right now, because we're all here with you. And we all, I know I speak for everybody listening to you right now, compassion for your pain, not minimizing your pain, and saying, please join us, because this is a critical time on the planet. And there's a part that only you can play, Joanne. You said you're a writer. You said you told us the gifts you have. Maybe it's taking a walk right now. You said you live in New York. Maybe it's getting out of the apartment, going, God will lead you. But sometimes you have to make a decision. I will not allow myself. I know what this is like. I'm a double Cancer. People know astrology, and I can watch myself spiral down. And there's an art form to how you go through it. Okay, Marianne, I'll create the space. You can be in a bad mood, and you will. There's that place where honoring your pain turns into indulging your pain, where processing your pain becomes spewing your pain. And all of us are like working on finding that sweet spot where we're honoring ourselves, but not indulging ourselves. You're just like the rest of us. So right now, what I'm going to suggest is that we all pray with Joanne, because I think that everybody can relate to what Joanne is saying. So right now, we, dear God, join with Joanne and we surrender to you her burdens. We surrender to you her pain. We surrender to you her suffering. And we place in your hands our own as well. And we take this moment to remember all those who suffer on this planet. Billions and billions of people who are experiencing terrible suffering. And our hearts, we open our hearts in this moment in profound compassion. And we join with Joanne in asking, please show us how we can help. And so it is, together, we all say, amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne.
Thank you, Joanne. Great message for all of us. When in doubt, focus out.
That's a great one. When in doubt, focus out. So true.
Marianne, my wife gets the credit for that one. Benny now. Benny, if we can get you to unmute, I am sourcing. It's going to work this time. Benny, if you can hit your unmute button. Benny, you're throwing me under the bus.
Benny!
Benny is off with the Jets, as they say. So let's move on to Michelle. Michelle, yes, thank you for unmuting, Michelle. Hi.
Hi, thank you so much. Marianne, it's just such an honor to see you here today. You were the very first spiritual teacher that I encountered when I went through my own awakening, and I think I saw you 20 years ago in Toronto.
Thank you.
And before I ask my question, I just want to say, as a Canadian who is observing all of the US political situation over the last few years, I obviously recognized you immediately when you joined the race. And I was so incredibly impressed.
Thank you.
And delighted to see you enter that space, and the fact that you remained completely unchanged in terms of who you are and how you presented yourself to the world. And I think that even though you didn't win in that regard, you won. Because you changed the consciousness. I could see it, the way that the other candidates were responding. They started to borrow your language. So
we're healing the soul of America, are we?
So anyway, the question I have for you is, I work in a very precarious position where I work in my private practice in holistic nutrition and energy healing, but I also work in the allopathic medical world in the hospital-based system. And I'm kind of surrounded by both sets of views of the pandemic. And I like to think, due largely to listening to your spiritual teaching over the years, to be open-minded to what everyone has to say and to make up my own mind about things. But faced with the ideas that are constantly put in front of me of incredible devious conspiracy, from the worst fears of humanity, where I try to elevate myself to and those around me is that even if that's true, and I'm not saying it is because I'm not sure I believe that, but even if it was true, the power of love is so much stronger, and the power of our consciousness and binding together as a community to support one another with the solutions that we have in front of us is always going to win. That's the mentality I try to continuously elevate my consciousness to. I remember your quote, which is often misquoted, ironically, but our deepest fear is not that we're inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. I just wonder how you deal with this and what your thoughts are. And that's where I try to live from. But I'd really love to hear from you.
Exactly what you just said. I hear it all. I hear it all. And there are very few people who represent something that I feel that's the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And I hear things and I go, and I know that ultimately it's what you said, that the answer is the same no matter what. No matter what's going on, the answer that love is stronger and love is greater. And that if we continue to build the consciousness of love for one another and the righteousness that I spoke of, and each of us playing the part that God would have us play, the God of our understanding, then all walls will fall. So some of what I hear these days, some of it I don't know what to think. Others of it, I'm certainly not over with certainly not with the QAnon crowd or any craziness like that. I think that we're living in very chaotic times, obviously. And I think that the issue is less to analyze the problem sometimes and more to be the solution as God would have you be. And regardless of, I think that the quote unquote conspiracy that we have to worry about is nothing covert, it's quite overt. It's that due to the undue influence of money on our political system, we have a corporate matrix of health insurance companies and big pharmaceutical companies, gun manufacturers, chemical companies, food companies, agricultural companies, fossil fuel companies, and defense contractors, who are able to dominate our public policies in ways that are at the expense of the safety and health and well-being of the American people and the planet on which we live. And given the current makeup of the Supreme Court, it's not reasonable to assume that we can overturn Citizens United anytime soon. And Citizens United was a decision that gave all this permission for hundreds of millions of dollars to unduly influence our public policy. The only antidote to that is an awakened citizenry. And in the presence of an awakened citizenry, all of this will change. Anything less, it will not. And that is what we should be concentrated on, in my opinion.